Okay, so I am super excited and humbled to have the opportunity to chat with Kento Tamaki today. So Kento is a local boy born and raised in Kihei, who is now a pro pickleball player, and he should be putting Hawaii on the map of the pro circuit. So thanks, Kento, for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about where things are right now. Before this, we talked about where things are sort of at with the pro thing. Fill us in and where you're at right now.
So I was just explaining, I signed with Major League Pickleball last September. And at the time there were, two leagues kind of feuding to sign players, Major League Pickleball and then Professional Pickleball Association, which is the PPA. In terms of that battle, I would say Major League Pickleball kind of won in terms of like signing I would say the top players and the most amount of players. And then really as the year kind of progressed, they decided talking about a merger between the PPA and Major League Pickleball. The big thing was coming down to funding, because obviously now there was a big salary for signing, 100 players. So that was the biggest thing for the merger, I think, is whether PPA would take it over or another, if the merger was going to happen or not. So, and now they're really trying to get all players to do price cuts for all their salaries. So everyone, I would say all players had been asked for a 40% cut for players' salary. Yeah. So and the reason why it's gone so long now, I mean, we're at February 15th now to this day, and they have to fulfill everything by March 31st in order for the merger to really happen. So there's still some time on the table. But I'm told that they're very close. I personally signed a new contract with Major League Pickleball and PPA. That's if the merger goes through.
I see.
So my deal is now solidified. I'm playing 12 events for the year. So where I would say most players are playing 24 events. I personally asked for 12 just because it gives me opportunity to do other things as well. 24 events kind of was just a lot for myself in terms of scheduling, especially traveling from Hawaii.
Mhm.
So that's why I asked for 12, and I'm hoping I can, hopefully load most of my tournaments in the summer and then play all Major League Pickleball events. So, and that's anywhere from 6 to 9 events is what they're telling me. And then the rest I'll play PPA. So
So
the
it's
cool thing
on.
is I'll have a team event plus individual events. And the draft is going to happen in the next coming months
I see.
based on the merger. So that's why nothing's been announced yet. Everything's kind of been delayed throughout the year.
So.
So, but I'm happy about my 12 events.
Mhm.
That equates to pretty much one a month, which is very similar to what I did last year up until October. I think it's still quite a bit of events, but 24 events was just, it was a little too much for me, just being about half the year.
Yeah. So you were saying, so things are kind of on hold right now, right?
Yeah,
Until this whole merger thing gets sorted out. And if it
yeah.
does go through, that's when you're saying, then I'm going to be
Then
drafted.
I'll
Is
be
that how it
playing.
works?
Yeah, so then I'll be drafted, correct.
I see.
So
Okay.
as soon as I got off the phone today with actually the commissioner, but um yeah, he told me actually that they're very close to a merger. At least I mean, they've been kind of saying this for weeks and months now, so it's hard to believe, what's true and what's not.
Mhm.
But at least I'm told it's very close with the merger. It sounds like mostly all players have agreed to the new contract. Like I said before, the big thing was they're paying a lot of
Mm.
players, big lump sum of money, as well as paying for all our travel expenses, health benefits. There was a lot to it. And our previous contracts wrote, there was no cap to any of this stuff. So it was going to be very expensive to Major League Pickleball. So I think now they're trying to make it more reasonable, and especially for a company that's trying to be profitable in years coming,
Hmm.
it was going to be very hard with the numbers that they were going to have to pay players.
Hmm.
So yeah, and the reason why those numbers went so high is because PPA and MLP were both trying to sign players at the same time. So players were able, for the first time, have a leg up and try to negotiate,
Hmm.
which league that they would play in
I
based
see.
on pay.
Yeah.
So
So I Googled, you. And
yeah,
so what I found was, I mean, there wasn't a lot like we
yeah,
talked about before. But what I did find was the duper ratings, right? And so the duper ratings were like you're like in excess of 6, which is crazy, right? So tell us how, right? You're born and raised in Maui, you're a local boy. How does one get from, people just see, okay, Kento's like now he's a 6 whatever duper
yeah,
and he's a pro, but they don't see all of the years before that sort of getting to where you're at. So can you fill us in on kind of like what your
yes,
road was?
yeah. So I played college tennis at Pepperdine. I played junior tennis in the Hawaii Pacific Division, and then nationally growing up, and then committed to Pepperdine my junior year of high school. Played my 4 years there, and then I tried playing professional tennis for a little bit after. I was just burnt out though. Didn't spend the time necessary to really try and give it a go. And then went into the workforce, and since I got into workforce, I really was just surfing for the last handful of years. Surfing, playing basketball, got back into tennis after a couple of years of quitting. Um, but still very active lifestyle. Now my main business is residential real estate. So I have a residential real estate team called Villa Group Maui, and it's been operating since 2020. But I've been operating my real estate business since 2017. So 7, 8 years now. And then got into pickleball September of 2022. So about a
September.
year and a half ago was the first time I picked up a paddle.
Who
And then
introduced you? How did you get introduced to it?
yeah, it's a really, really funny story. The way I got introduced to it was there's a couple of different people got me into it, but one guy, Henry Spencer, he's a member at Maui Country Club, and I'd go there maybe once or twice a week and play tennis. And for a number of years, I'd see him. I think for about a year, he was telling me, you got to pick up a pickleball paddle. You got to come play with us. You'd be a pro right away. Like he'd been telling me that for a while. And then like after a year of like him bugging me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start. I'll get out there. I think I got out there once and then like didn't play again. And then I also had some friends around town, Chad Newman, Brad Cook, and TZ Cook. They brought me out like I want to say it was like around September of that time. I said when I started, and I ended up playing a couple times with them, and then kind of started playing with Henry Spencer at the Maui Country Club, and then all of a sudden I was like hooked, playing like 4 days a week. Uh, yeah, and like it's funny because like the first time I played with Henry Spencer and them, like they were kicking my butt the whole time. And he's in his early 70s, and yeah, so it's just like, and he's an amazing athlete. Like you would never tell that he's 70, like
Mm,
in his 70s. But started playing with him, and like him and his buddy are kicking my butt. Like it's like, I don't understand this sport. Like why are these guys beating me kind of thing. And that's kind of how I started and progressed into it. Uh, yeah, and then by like after a few months of playing, another good friend of mine, Kelson Lau, during that time period, he's actually a surfer at heart. And he grew up competitively surfing, and
mm,
he picked up pickleball later on. But at that time, he'd already been playing for a couple of years. He kind of played all through COVID, and he's a really solid player. He's someone who I actually practice with now a good amount, and he traveled with me last year playing PPA events. But yeah, Kelson Lau was a big help for me to get into pickleball as well, especially him being like similar age as well.
mm. So how do
So
you even get there? So like you're playing, right? You're playing with
yeah,
Henry at the country club and you pick it up. You probably, your learning curve is probably really short because of your tennis
yeah,
background, but how do you then make the leap to going,
yeah.
pro?
Good question. So actually, like about a month or two after I started playing, the Maui Country Club was really getting into their pickleball scene, and they were bringing in different coaches to coach a lot
Mm.
of the club members, and there was a handful of pros that came in at like the end of that fall. And I was probably about a month and a half into playing, and I played with them, and I was like, wow, this is like, I feel like I'm at their level, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of picked it up, and I was keeping up with them. I got to play some games with them. And I was like, if this is what pro pickleball entails, like I think I have a chance, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of thought, and that's what kind of made me enter my first pro event. And that was actually I think it was at the end of November in Newport Beach.
Mm.
It was a PPA event. And I only played pro singles. Um, and I did well. I won 4 matches,
Wow.
lost 2 matches. I played Hayden Patrick Quinn like my first match ever on center court. Like I didn't even know. Like I got faulted for two serves because I had to give the ball back because I served before they announced the score.
Oh,
Like at the time, the rule was if you served before they announced it, they would get the ball back. So like I lost 2 points on my serve just because of serving
because
the
you were
ball.
super
Yeah,
newbie, right? Like you didn't even know.
I think I lost like 6-9. I think I lost 6-9 or something. It was like a very close match. I was up like 8-2 in the second set or something. But that was my first match ever, and I was
Oh
told
my
Hayden's
gosh.
top player. So it's like, okay, well, I think I got a chance. And then I obviously after that for 2023, I decided, you know what, I'll try to play as many events as I can and see what happens. And then by the time I started playing, like the big thing for me, I realized doubles was such a big part
Mm.
of pickleball,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to just like start playing with anyone. So
Right.
I really tried to look for a good partner when I first started playing because I knew Duper was such a big deal too. So by March, me and Jame started playing together. Martinez bitch. And
Hmm.
then yeah, so him and I played for pretty much the whole year. And then yeah, I kind of got my foot through the door in men's doubles from there. And then I played singles too all throughout the year.
So how
What's
does that?
funny, like I think, I mean, at least I've always thought I was better in singles. But what's funny is all my doubles results are actually better than my singles results.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think singles, I think I'll have some good wins this year.
Do you prefer one over the other?
I prefer singles,
Mm.
honestly. It's just the closest to tennis. I love doubles too. But I just think my athleticism is most used in singles rather than a shorter court of doubles.
I see.
So, because I think singles has to do a lot with explosiveness,
Mm.
athleticism, speed, quickness, kind of all the above, where doubles is more of a skill based, I would say, and very fast hands and
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's a little bit more unorthodox too. Like you can be a very unorthodox pickleball player and still get away with it in doubles just because of the style of play.
Hmm.
Or singles, it's kind of black or white. It's like if you have certain attributes of it, that you're gonna hopefully have a better chance to beat that other side. It's
Hmm.
just different. I
Yeah.
love both. Yeah.
Hmm.
I look forward to both for sure. I play more doubles,
Hmm.
definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what would you say is so that I went the article that I saw, you were one of those that they were talking about being very intriguing as a player to be watched. So now you're on the pro radar, right? So
Yeah.
what would you say your biggest challenge is now as a pro?
I think finding partners is a big one because
Mm.
I mean, I'm a lefty too, and
Oh, okay.
a lot of people do want to play with lefties, but at the same time, it takes some time to get used to playing with another lefty.
Hmm.
Um, I think the challenging part for sure is finding a good partner to play with.
So do you come in with a partner? So how does that work? Because you're going to get
Yeah,
drafted.
so
You
you
draft
really
together?
you have to kind of go and network yourself and find partners.
Ah, I see.
No one's going out there to connect you with anyone. So a lot of it is
Mm,
you getting to know other players and them respecting you and um, going from there and kind of creating a partnership.
hmm
Interesting thing about pickleball is it seems like not everyone has a solidified partner. Where in tennis, a lot of the time, if you're playing on the pro tour, a lot of the time if you're playing full on doubles, you have a partner that you play with it week in, week out.
hmm
Pickleball, it seems a little bit different. Everyone kind of changes here and there. But yeah, it is difficult finding a solid partner to play with. I would say that it is challenging because a lot of the guys play week in, week out with each other.
So when you find that person, would you have to then, I mean, what are the chances of them being on Maui? Probably not high. So
Yeah,
would you have
very,
to
very low. I definitely have to
you
go.
you'd
And
have to live,
that's
uh-huh.
another thing that people have trouble committing to someone like me is because I'm not in pickleball 365 days out of the year.
I see.
So, some players are, like I said, playing 24 events a year where I'm playing 12.
hmm
People might fault me for that because they know that, hey, Kento is not going to be practicing every single day, kind of thing.
I see.
But, there's a give and take with that too. But like when I'm in season, I train, as much as I can and I'll play as much as I can.
hmm
But yeah, the big thing is I'm just not in the scene as much as everyone else where they're seeing each other week in, week out.
hmm
So it's really hard to create that rapport with other players or like I've created so many good friends from the pickleball tour and I feel like, I have good partners that I have good access to. But if I wanted to, you know, I guess expand that, it's very difficult unless you're not at the tournaments week in, week out.
hmm
Because a lot of these guys are practicing with each other, playing rec games together all the time. Like,
Right.
and that's kind of like what I was saying is when I'm on the mainland playing pickleball, like that's all I'm doing. But when I'm home, I spend time doing things that I enjoy as well. So it's hard for me to give that time to pickleball 24/7. Also, just because of um, we just don't have as many good rec play as somewhere like Honolulu does, or even the mainland. But a lot of the time, I go to San Diego and I'll train with Cal and
Hmm.
Dawson. That's
I
kind of
see.
my main place to go.
hmm
There's a few of us who go, like Megan Dazan, she trains with us in San Diego. Hayden Patrick now is over there. Alex Newman. Yeah, we have some really good players there in San Diego.
So if this thing goes through, right, then so you
Yeah,
have there's a couple things you have to like find a partner and then
yeah,
so what is the season? Like how long is it and would you live there for the whole
yeah,
time?
yeah. That's a good
Okay.
question. I would say depending on how the schedule shakes out for this year, and I was talking earlier today to MLP. I don't know if this is something I could say, but they're thinking May is kind of going to be the first event.
I see.
Uh,
We won't hold you to that or them.
yeah, at least this is what I'm told. They
Right.
might share it with anyone. So, but yeah, it sounds like May is gonna be when MLP will officially start. If the merger goes through, I'll start playing probably in, I would assume March or April is kind of
hmm
my thought. Probably April
hmm
now, depending on what the schedule looks like. But yeah, they're saying Miami MLP will probably be the first one.
So that
Uh,
means you would live in Miami for the
no, I would
season?
just so it just depends really. I'll still be on Maui full time.
Oh, okay.
My obligations is really just one event a month. So
That's right.
based on Major League Pickleball or PPA, but I will spend more than one probably weekend a month on the mainland just because if I am going to these events, I'll probably go early to train.
I see.
Uh, so I have a feel like the last couple months, well, January and this month, I won't be going anywhere for pickleball. So that kind of makes it so a lot of my events kind of have to be squeezed in during the summer, just more
hmm
events. So I'd assume May, June, July, August is kind of my months to play a lot of pickleball. And me personally, like I play way better in the warm weather just
Mm,
because being from here.
That you're used
Uh,
to. Mm-hmm.
yeah, just being from Maui, it's like I'd rather play in the hottest, most humid conditions that I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, really the hottest conditions I'd be happy with. I
Mm-hmm.
perform best in like the more heat, the better.
So do you have control over that? Because you were talking about packing your schedule. So I guess I'm
Yeah.
curious about
Yeah,
how
so the
you.
only thing I don't have control of is Major League Pickleball. So like let's say I get drafted by the Las Vegas Night Owls, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll be able to choose which events that I'm playing.
I see.
So it's really based on them. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, I have to show up for those Major League Pickleball events and play.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
any of the excess events that I do not play for Major League Pickleball, I'll be playing PPAs. So it might be 6 PPAs and 6 Major League Pickleball events.
I see.
And I should know more like once after the draft, but I did realize after playing last year in terms of the season, I won't be going to the cold places as much. Like last year, like I played Palm Springs, it was really cold.
Oh.
Uh, I played and that was in January. I played in Arizona twice and it was cold. Um, I went to play in Austin, Texas. It was cold.
Oh, I bet.
So yeah, like all the places that I played in like the winter and the spring, they all were unfavorable for me. Just
Mm.
because the ball hardens up, it plays completely
Oh,
different.
I see.
It's just like not a style of play that I'm completely used to. If
Mm-hmm.
I was training in it all the time or went maybe a couple weeks earlier, a week before, it would be, but I just realized for what I'm used to, it doesn't really make now that I can pick my events, it doesn't always
Mm-hmm.
make sense for me to go to those events because
Mm-hmm.
for me, I feel like I'm not going to perform at my peak, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be a little bit more strategic about it this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So I'm going to ask you this kind of out of the
yeah.
box question. What would you say is your most like memorable or funniest or greatest moment as a pickleball player?
Hmm. That's a good question. I guess the most memorable for me was when, and this is just when I just from one match that we played. Um, I think it was beating Kyle Yates and why am I blanking on his name? Um, I forgot his name already. He's a top pro. Um, that's bad.
A top, well, you beat Kyle Yates and a very top pro then, right?
Yeah, and I don't know why I'm blanking on it. It's I'm trying to he has a podcast too. Let me find
Oh
this
my
real quick.
goodness.
Travis Rettenmeyer.
Okay. Oh, so would you say that was like your greatest moment as a
I would
pickleball
say
player?
that was where I was like, all right, this is the like, okay, now I know for sure that I can beat all these top guys. And
Mm,
I've also had some really close matches with the top guys, and like, I don't know. I think that match especially was like, all right, this is my first win having like Kyle Yates at one point was one in the world. Travis Rettenmeyer was like top 10 at the time. And I was like, all right, like me and Jame, who just started playing, can beat these guys. Like,
mm,
I think for sure I can give this a go. And that
hmm
was kind of where kind of propelled me from there. And I was like, all right, this, it gave me more confidence in myself as well, for sure.
hmm
Yeah. And also I think other moments were like some singles matches, like some losses that I had, where I was like, okay, I am at the right place, right time. Like this is a good thing that I'm playing these events.
hmm
Um, but yeah, I think all of it, I enjoyed pretty much all the events, like even win or lose, a lot of
hmm
them actually. There was never really that like in tennis, it's so different because like in tennis, you put your whole life and everything into it, right?
hmm
And like losses are like a big deal,
hmm
even though you like any top 100 tennis player loses more than they actually win. Um, but we're in pickleball, like you lose, but like at the same time, there's more to it. Like it's also like fun and the whole social aspect and
Mm-hmm.
the events are fun. Um, I'd say those are kind of, yeah, like the I would, another event that really actually brings in mind is my first event on center court again, and I played Ben Johns and Colin Johns in
Oh my God.
doubles. That was in Austin, Texas. I'd say that was probably the first moment where I was like, and I had some friends that were, that live in Austin now, and they all came out, and it was just cool. Yeah, it was really, I was like, oh wow, I'm playing, Ben and Colin Johns for the
Mm,
best doubles players in the world, and I just
exactly.
started playing 6 months ago, so it
That's
was like,
crazy.
yeah, it was crazy. Like, it's one of the people that I mentioned, TZ Cook, who I started playing pickleball with, uh, when I first initially started, she was one of the people that brought me out. And she like messaged me on Instagram, was like, it's crazy to see like we just started playing with you like 6 months ago, and now I'm seeing you on center court. It's like
That
it was just
is.
really cool. I was like, oh, that's really awesome. Like, you know, and that was kind of like my big like aha moment, I guess I would say. Yeah.
Well,
And we
yeah.
lost, I think, 11-7, 11-8. And like we put on a pretty good showing, and the
Yeah.
crowd
Pretty
was
close.
good. But I didn't feel that far off. Like I thought they were totally beatable. I've
Hmm.
only played them once. Um, but yeah, those were kind of the moments where I think put things in perspective and was like, all right, I could be a top pro. So
So have you ever had, so I mean, to be honest, I mean, I don't watch a lot of like
yeah,
pro pickleball matches and stuff, but some that I have watched, I've seen get pretty heated and I've seen like yelling and that sort of thing. Have you ever witnessed that
yeah,
or played against that yourself?
yeah. I think I've been in those moments too myself. Just
As
heat of
in
the moment.
you're doing it or you were on the other side of that?
I would say both. Like
Oh,
there, I've
okay.
had some. I'm not a hot-tempered guy by any means. Um, but like I definitely say when it gets competitive, things can get chippy, like in any
Uh,
sport.
hmm.
But at the end of the day, like it's not like we're about to fight or anything, At the end of the day, I can still laugh about it.
Hmm.
It yeah.
But
But yeah,
that
there definitely are. I think what you're referring to, I don't get that chippy, but there are things that happen where like crowd gets involved and like,
mm,
between crowd and player, like,
oh wow.
yeah, there are some things like that that happen. Um, just because pickleball is like unlike any other sport where like you can be face to face with the players. Like, you're right next to the court's so small,
Hmm.
it's only
Hmm.
so big. And like, even when you're playing these matches, like you can hear every little thing that
Oh my
someone's saying,
gosh.
So it's like, yeah, there's definitely some heckling going on here and there. Players definitely talk trash. Like it's not
Uh,
like tennis where it's an
hmm.
etiquette sport. It's kind of like a free for all. And like I think it's cool because like you go to these events and they have like they're selling alcohol, they're giving away alcohol,
Uh,
they're giving out free like energy drinks, and like it's a full like convention almost
I see.
of like pickleball and like just like sports drinks, and like yeah, there's definitely alcohol companies that are sponsoring these events too, and people like to drink at some of these events, it seems like. And the crowd definitely gets into it, like more places than others, but yeah, like I would say the major cities, it's like it's pretty fun to play.
But
Yeah, I honestly like the entertainment side, you know.
that's interesting. You mentioned something about tennis etiquette. So is it very
Yeah.
different in the
Oh, it's
like,
completely different night
oh
and
my
day.
gosh.
Yeah, like tennis, it's like yeah, like it's got to be very quiet, like
Ah, I see.
very similar to golf. It's very posh, and like
Hmm.
there's tennis etiquette, like you don't really talk during a point, like, or in pickleball it's like it can be very loud still as you're playing points. There's music
Mm-hmm.
going on, there's
I
um
see.
that kind of etiquette is a little bit different. But one thing, yeah, one thing that I guess I don't really like about pickleball is like the etiquette side. Like I feel like at some point, like some things need to be changed in terms of like if a point's going on or something, and like, if there's a ton of movement in the background, or
Mm-hmm.
people aren't aware that a point's going on, and like, I don't know, there's just a lot of interference going on sometimes. But I guess that's just,
Distracting. Yeah.
yeah, distraction.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because now that I think about it, when I watch tennis, I don't like see them yelling at each other really or like trash talking each other.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no,
so I
none
guess
of that.
that is different.
And the court also is so far away,
That's true. Right.
so you
That's
get that
true.
plus where like in pickleball, like you're,
You're right.
yeah, and like
So
you
true.
bag someone, he's like right there.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Like, it's a little bit more up close and personable.
So
Um,
true.
yeah, so I think that's the difference. And like the other thing is not all these pickleball players are tennis players too. I would say a majority of them are or come
Mhm,
from tennis,
mhm,
but like some of them are soccer players, volleyball players, baseball players, like
mhm.
that move over to pickleball.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the interesting part too, is people come from different sports,
yeah.
and like, their etiquette is completely different than
Oh,
someone who plays.
true. They come from whatever sport,
Yeah,
right? They bring that into to pickleball. So that's true.
yeah,
So what advice? So, this is like a growing sport. There's a lot of
yeah,
younger people that are getting involved now. So what advice would you give someone who might be thinking that I want to be like Kento one day?
yeah. I think the biggest thing, I would say drilling is like a huge thing
Mm,
for sure. When I first started, I think just understanding how to play the game the correct way, that's a big part of it. And then another thing I think is just playing as many events as you can, even if you're at a lower level. Like it's awesome because these PPA tournaments offer all kinds of different levels, right?
mhm.
So like, um, they go from anywhere from 3-0 to the pros.
Right,
So
right.
like these PPA tournaments are age division brackets and 3-0, 3-5, 4-0, 4-5. So it's kind of very inclusive thing. So whether what level you are, you can still progress. So I think it's just getting out there and playing events and trying to, especially if you're trying to play at a higher level eventually, and let's say you're a younger kid or something, you just start up playing at a lower event and work your way up, really.
Makes sense.
But I think having the competitive side, not just playing rec games, is a
Hmm.
big difference, right? Like competing is completely different than playing a rec game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing in my opinion, is always, and like with anything, right? Is putting yourself in that mindset to compete.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I wish I had more of last year, was more match play. I had so very little match play because I was so new, and I still
Hmm.
don't have a ton of match play. So I feel like every event I'm still learning. Um, so yeah, that's the big thing I would say. But yeah, I would say anyone that's trying to learn and become better, I'd say practice mid-court. Transition game is everything. Yeah,
Oh,
like I would just sit mid-court and practice all like, and I say like kind of no man, like in tennis, it's considered no man's land.
they call it that too. Yeah.
In pickleball, they call it actually, like I would say there's some people that call it the land of opportunity.
Oh, I've never heard that one.
Yeah, so Steve Dawson actually says that.
Land of
Callan Dawson
opportunity.
said,
Oh,
yeah.
explain that because we're always told to stay
Yeah,
out of
so
it.
like, yeah, it's funny. A lot of people don't look at it like that. So really, in pickleball, there's really only three parts of the court to be at. One is behind the baseline,
Hmm.
one is in no man's land, which I consider a land of opportunity,
Hmm.
and then the third is the kitchen.
Hmm.
And really, you shouldn't really be in any other parts of the court most of the time. So if, for instance, let's say we're serving, playing doubles, we're both back.
Hmm.
I serve a ball, they hit a return back. My thing is, let's say the ball gets hit, a good deep return, I'm behind the baseline. Until I hit a good drop, I'm not moving into the court, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
once that ball bounces and I hit a good drop and notice that, hey, they're reaching below the net,
Hmm.
that's when I start to shuffle and make my way into the court. And then if you get to the land of opportunity, right? That
Mm-hmm.
means that you're getting closer to get into the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can sit there and if you can just practice sitting mid-court and retrieving balls out of the air and then also out of the bounce and still able
Mm-hmm.
to land it in the kitchen, once you can sit there for 3, 4 balls until you hit in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Once you hit the kitchen, that's when you make your next step and you're at the third part of the court, which is the kitchen.
Oh, I see.
And really at high level pickleball, a point doesn't really start until you're in the kitchen. Because really, like the whole thing for pickleball is commanding the net, right? That's where you're most offensive. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to get to the net, you have to have a transition game. If you have no transition game, you'll never get to the kitchen. That's why I say you got to practice in no man's land. Because the more that someone practices in mid-court and no man's land, and they're able to take balls out of the air and land it in the kitchen, and also take balls off the bounce and still land it in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
that's their best way to get into the court. If they have no mid court or someone has no mid court, you'll never get to the kitchen because they'll just keep pushing you back.
That's
That
very
that's
interesting.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
It does. It
Yeah.
does.
There's like pickleball is actually very simple. Like I hate to say it's very simple, but like it's the way that I think about it, I try to make it very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and really the whole point is just commanding the net, right? Like, trying to get into the net just to get the
Mm-hmm.
point started.
Mm-hmm.
And really that is the only way to do that is to get the ball in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So yeah, that's kind of
Well, no, that
that's kind
was
of what I would
really
say.
good, like a different, thought process
Different
from what,
perspective, right? Like
yeah, for
I feel
sure.
like I explain that to a lot of people and they start to understand because a lot of people are like, what can I work on? Like because really like a lot I know so many people that have so much skill, right? And like they might have the skill in all the shots, they just don't understand the concept of how the game works.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people it's very difficult. And I've just like I mean I've learned from other players and other pro players and coaches and stuff, which has helped me progress. But I really realize, at least for me, if I was to do even only one practice, I'd just practice mid-court.
Wow.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that to me, because really the higher the chance that you practice mid-court and you're landing balls in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
the higher chance you have to win the match, really. Because really, once you're in the hardest part is getting into the kitchen. And then once you're in the kitchen, if you already know how to dink and do all those
Mm-hmm.
things,
Mm-hmm.
it comes a lot sooner. But the interesting thing is at a lower level, less people are getting into the kitchen. So it's kind of a give and take. Like until you start to practice your transition game, you probably shouldn't even be practicing in the kitchen, if that makes
That's
sense.
yeah, well, that's where, a lot of the points happen is because
Yeah,
we're not used to being in the transition zone and it falls at your
exactly.
feet and you can't get it. And so, it's and we don't practice there because we're told to
Yeah,
stay out of it, right? So
totally. And like it was really interesting because I think Callan Dawson is really, and Steve Dawson is what really made me like click and like feel or like think differently about doubles. Um, because I was just even explaining to another guy here who's a solid player that I was like, like when I'm home now, I actually and I play with everyone and play rec and stuff. I won't drive a ball because
mm,
I know my drives are like I won't lose practice on my drive. I can hit my drive whether I don't play for a month or 2 months. Drive is going to be the same drive.
mhm.
Uh, but the part that I do practice is getting it into the kitchen. So a lot of the time when I play matches, I drive and crash a lot just because my drive I would say is definitely superior than most pros, I would say, just coming
Mm,
from playing high level tennis.
mhm,
I can drive and crash all day, but the
mm,
difference is being able to drop the ball when you're behind the baseline or resetting when you're in mid court.
right. Mm,
So those are the two things that I practice consistently, and I kind of rarely drive when I practice now when I'm home, just because my whole goal is to get into the kitchen.
mhm.
I know my drive might be able to win a point without having to get to the kitchen, but for me, for practice, that's kind of what I do. I won't even hit a drive unless, I will hit some, but not,
Mhm.
I very few than what I would if I was playing a real competition.
I see. That makes
So
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would say, and sorry, going back to what Callan was saying, yeah, Callan Dawson was just telling me, the biggest thing that he tests when he's playing different players is their transition game. If they can't
Mm,
sit mid-court, he'll just push them back the whole time.
I
And he'll win,
see.
more points than not by pushing them back and even letting them get to the kitchen, if that makes sense.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like he can, you can tell people's different weaknesses just from the first handful of points that you play.
Hmm.
And really another thing is seeing like, I mean, this is going very in depth, but like seeing like, hey, that other opponent likes to drive the ball. This person doesn't like to drive the ball. Their third drop isn't as good that as the other player. Where
Mm,
most players just hit the ball back.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely ends up being a little bit more strategic at the higher level once you're like, okay, this guy has a worse third drop. His
Yeah.
transition isn't as good, so we're going to keep him out of the court. You
Hmm.
know, just little things like that. But transition is like I can't harp enough about mid court transition.
Hmm.
Like when
What's
I'm
it?
more,
Yeah.
that's all I'll practice usually.
Well, and I think it's such a good reminder to be, to observe and to be intentional, right? I mean, because that you can probably win more that way. I mean, if that's your goal, right, is to win. Because
Yeah,
if you're just paying attention to what they're doing versus just like having a blank slate every single time you start
right.
playing, right? Then that's
Yeah,
smart way to
yeah.
play.
I guess when I get into competition mode, I think more like that. When I'm playing rec, I'll do whatever. But like I
Hmm.
said, the main focus that I'll have is transition. Like, like sometimes I'll even just walk into the kitchen because like I'll start from the back and just take my time coming in
Mm,
because like I'm okay with hitting 10 balls before I go into the kitchen
I see.
or whatever that is. A lot of I would say most players usually make an error before 10 anyways, but like I would say definitely like I just try to work on and try to get as many balls as I can in the transition part of the
Yeah. Hmm.
game.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great lesson right there
The whole
for
thing is
everyone.
like, yeah, like I think one of the coaches, this guy Austin Svam, he comes to Maui Country Club a lot, and he comes about I think once a month and coaches a lot of the members. But he always says, let the ball hit the earth, right? That's the biggest thing. Is like once it bounces in the kitchen, you're safe to because like they're not going to be attacking.
Hmm.
And a lot of it, I think people have trouble observing when the ball goes over the net if the
Hmm.
ball is technically high or if the ball is low.
Mm.
And the recognition part is a big deal. Like if you get the ball in the kitchen, you should be moving up. But if you hit the ball high, you should be sitting back.
Hmm.
And a lot of
Right.
people, like even if they hit the ball high, they're still trying to get into
Get
the
into
kitchen
kitchen.
because they think
Yeah.
that the kitchen is like where you win the point. But
Hmm.
really,
Hmm.
you can't win the point until you get into the kitchen, is kind of the way you need to think.
I see. Yeah, that's definitely a mindset shift because I think
Yeah.
at like at my level, so for example, like we're just, I take lessons
Yeah.
occasionally and then I play rec, but it's all about just you're taught sort of just to get to the kitchen. So you're
Correct.
almost not really
Yeah, all
thinking
your
about
eye
am
on the
I
prize is like
yeah.
running in to get in the
Yeah,
kitchen. I used to think
exactly.
the same thing.
Hmm.
Totally. I used to think the same thing. Even when I
Yeah.
was even last beginning of last year when I was playing pro events at the beginning, I was thinking the same thing. The only thing is I was able to get away with it because I was hitting the ball super hard with like drives and stuff.
Uh,
So a lot of the time it allowed me to get in the kitchen because of that.
yeah.
But what I've realized is the right way to play pickleball is not that way. Like it can, like Steve Dawson will tell you, it might take you 5 to 10 balls to get in the kitchen.
Hmm.
But as long as you're able to get there, that's the
Hmm.
biggest thing. It's
I
how do
see.
you get there? Yeah.
Hmm. No, thanks
So
for sharing that. That's really
yeah,
valuable advice.
yeah.
So,
Sorry if I went on a rant,
no,
but
that was good. That's good.
yeah.
So, I have three rapid fire questions and just one
Okay.
last question. So,
Okay.
what paddle are you using currently?
I'm using Pro XR paddle right now.
That's the brand? That's the name of the brand?
Yeah, Pro
Oh, oh,
XR.
sorry.
So
Okay.
I'm using the Zane Navratil 14.
Okay.
And I've been
Um,
using that since September of last year.
oh, okay.
Before that, I was with 6-0.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite or signature shot?
Favorite signature shot? That's a good question. I'd say my favorite shot is probably my cross court backhand.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
tough one.
yeah, from the baseline.
Wow, okay. Nice.
Cross court top spin backhand
Wow,
into
okay.
position.
All
Yeah,
three tough, right? Cross court, backhand, and spin,
yeah, yeah.
all in one.
I'd say that's my favorite.
And the last rapid fire question, what's one thing in like your travel bag or your pickleball duffel bag that you can't live without?
That's a good question. Um, Maybe my chopsticks.
There you go.
Yeah,
Very practical.
very practical in the cold weather.
And so the last question I have for you. So what's up next for Kento Tamaki?
Yeah. What's next for me, I would say, is hopefully playing Major League Pickleball if all things go well. But yeah, I think for me for this year, my big goal would be I think finishing top 25 in PPA rankings. I don't know if that's possible with the amount of events that I'm playing, but yeah, that and I would say I would think hopefully do better in singles. I think that's the big thing for me. Just because I know I have it in me, it's just more so doing and having the results.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Oh, very nice. So where can we like where can people if they want to sort of follow your journey, where can they
Yeah,
find out more
yeah. So my
information?
Instagram is Kento360.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd say you definitely follow my journey there. And then I'm hoping once everything gets solidified, they'll be pushing me a lot more for PPA and Major League Pickleball.
Hmm.
And I think that's the plan once all things get pushed forward. But yeah, I would definitely say follow my journey on Instagram, and I'll try to post more on pickleball stuff, as most of it's all lifestyle stuff as of now.
Yeah,
Lifestyle and surfing and work. So
we'll look forward to that.
awesome.
All right, thanks for joining us, Kento, today.
Okay, thank you.